Night of the Fire Raids. The night of September the 7th, 1940, Harry and I went to the Playhouse Cinema in Weston Road. It was dangerous moonlight, with Anton Walbrook, Terence Dimani, and that bloody awful Warsaw Concerto. When we came out that night, the sky was filled with what sounded like relays of German bombers heading inland. There was remarkably little ack-ack to deter them. Cloud was low, and most of the anti-aircraft batteries were further inland, grouped around strategic cities. After a quick drink in the Devonshire, we ended up at the Forces' Corner to finish off the evening. I started chatting up the birds, one especially, Betty Apsnell, a plain girl who made up for it with a sensational figure. Man had to be satisfied with his lot, and man, this girl had the lot. I tried to create an atmosphere of caviar and champagne while eating beans on toast with tea. The things soldiers do to impress girls. A gunner with a tremendous Welsh accent tried to make a girl believe that he was an American millionaire who had thrown in his lot with the British Army. He was heard something to say like, "Gee whiz, baby, ain't I lucky to have joined the little British old army, shucks? If I hadn't, I'd never have met you." Harry wandered up to the piano and started to play a few tunes. One of the WVS girls, who was serving, sidled up to the piano. She was the daughter of a retired admiral in Cruden Road. She was tall and beautiful, with the county school accent. "Can you play Foolish Things?" Harry complied. At first she only hummed the tune, then she started to sing. Christ! She sang a quarter of a tone flat the whole way through. I caught Harry's eye. He was suffering. Always a gentleman, Harry at the end of her effort said "lovely." And encouraged, she said, "Do you know a pair of silver wings?" Harry did. At that moment he wished he'd had a pair. He had to sit through some 7 songs agonizingly sung before he escaped. "She must have cloth ears," said Harry as we walked home. The bombers were still droning over. As we approached the billets we could see a glow in the northern sky. The sound of distant ack-ack could be heard. "Someone's copying it," said the sentry as we walked into the drive. "Looks like it could be Red Hill," said Harry. But I had my doubts. He was the only man I knew who would get lost in his own street. After the war, when I lived in Shepherd's Hill, Highgate, he said he would show me a short cut to his house in St. John's Way Archway. We walked for an hour that night, during which time we'd never got more than 300 yards from my house. "I can't understand it," he said. "It's the magnetic north. It must have changed during the war." Whatever that was supposed to mean, I'll never know. We climbed into bed. "I've never heard so many bombers before," said Harry. We lay in bed smoking for about a quarter of an hour. Then Smudger Smith came in. "Caw," he says, "look at the sky. It's on fire up there." We pulled on our trousers and climbed up onto the roof. The sky was on fire. Other gunners had joined us. We watched in silence for a while. "I think it's London," said a Cockney voice. "Could be," said another. George Vincent went down for his prismatic compass. The bearing showed the fire dead on the line to London. Mick Hamer, a Londoner, tried to phone his family, but was told that there was disruption on the line and all calls to London were blocked. We looked at the blaze, and it seemed to be getting bigger. I think we all knew it was London. My mother, father, and brother were there. I'm not sure how I felt. Helpless, I suppose. Bombardier Edsa switched on the BBC Midnight News, but there was no mention of any raid. Lots of the lads from London, we were a London regiment, found it hard to sleep that night. In the dark of our bedrooms there were attempts at reassurance. "They've all got Anderson Shettlers, haven't they? They're dead safe." "Yeah, dead safe. And there's all our anti-aircraft gunfire. That keeps them up high. Yeah, and there's the underground. Nothing could break them." The window near my bed faced north. As I lay there, I could see the glow of the fires. The bombers were still going. Some must have been on the way back as we heard cannon fire as night fighters got into them. What a bloody mess. Men and bombers raining death on defenceless civilians. Still, soon we'd be doing it back to them, on a scale never before imagined. For the love of me, I couldn't get the feeling that I was part of this. Killing of civilians was an outrage I couldn't swallow on any basis, on any side. But in the end there were no sides, just living and dead. Next morning we got confirmation of the raid. I managed to get through to my father at his office in Fleet Street, and he told me that all was well with the family. He was a fire warden on top of the Associated Press building and had seen the whole of what looked like St. Paul's on fire. The papers carried stories of how many German planes were shot down, heroism of the fire brigades, wardens, Red Cross, and night fighters, etc., etc. But it didn't mention the casualties that were heavy. Well, heavy for that time of the war. Later on it appeared that London got off extremely light.